Okay, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something that, well, feels pretty out there. Why do humans ask these huge questions? About life, the universe, right and wrong.
hmm
No other animal seems to do it quite like we do. It feels so abstract. But looking at the sources you sent over, maybe there's an evolutionary angle, something biological.
Yeah, that's exactly what's so intriguing about this material.
Yeah.
It argues that philosophy isn't, like, separate from survival,
Right.
but actually might stem from traits that gave early humans a real edge. We're looking at the why behind your ability, everyone's ability, really, to just wonder.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Where do the sources kick things off? What's the first big link?
Well, the foundation seems to be cognitive evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that, almost.
Yeah.
Our brains got bigger, yeah, but specifically more complex.
The neocortex, right.
Exactly, particularly the neocortex.
Mhm.
That allowed for abstract thought, self-reflection, thinking about the future, imagining things differently.
Mhm.
And the sources suggest philosophy is kind of a natural outcome of having that processing power. Once you could think hypothetically, ask what if, these bigger questions weren't far behind. It's like your brain got an upgrade.
So it wasn't just brain size, but the type of thinking it made possible. That naturally led here.
Precisely. And, that capability didn't exist in a vacuum.
Ah.
It immediately got tangled up with social living.
Okay.
The sources really emphasize social cohesion and moral reasoning.
Yeah,
Think about early human groups.
right.
If a group could agree on some shared ideas about fairness, justice, how to treat each other, basically early ethics,
Yeah.
they tend to be stronger, more united.
Yeah.
Thinking about right and wrong wasn't just navel-gazing.
Yeah.
It helped keep the peace, reduced internal squabbles, boosted cooperation, huge survival plus.
That makes total sense. You need rules to live together. And I guess understanding the other people in the group was part of that too.
Absolutely. Which leads right into theory of mind and empathy. We evolved this, well, pretty amazing knack for realizing that other people have their own minds.
Their own thoughts, feelings.
Exactly. Their own beliefs, desires, intentions. And the sources argue that this ability naturally sparked deeper questions. Things like, what actually makes me, me? Or
Mhm.
how do they see things? Do they feel sadness like I do? These are, fundamental philosophical questions about consciousness, about ethics. And they might come from just needing to figure out how to get along in a complex social world.
Okay, this next bit from the material really caught my eye. What about just being curious? Plain old curiosity.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The sources frame curiosity as an adaptive trait. And it makes sense, right?
Mhm.
Curiosity drives you to explore, to learn, innovate.
Find new food sources, avoid dangers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All key for adapting. And philosophical curiosity, wondering about time, death, what knowledge is presented as just an extension of that basic drive.
Hmm.
Asking why about the stars might seem abstract, but it could be linked to the same impulse that helps you figure out migration patterns or, how to make a better tool. The abstract why connects to the practical how.
So wondering why the sky is blue isn't totally disconnected from figuring out where the best berries grow.
In a fundamental way, maybe not.
Yeah.
It's all about trying to understand your environment.
Mm.
And speaking of big fundamental things, the sources mention something pretty unique to us.
What's that?
Existential anxiety and death awareness. This is a big one. Unlike, well, pretty much any other animal we know of, humans grasp their own mortality. We know we're going to die.
Yeah, that's heavy.
Right.
Mhm.
And it likely caused a lot of anxiety for early humans. The argument here is that philosophy and things like religion, spirituality, developing ideas about purpose or an afterlife emerged partly as a coping mechanism,
Wow.
creating meaning, finding narratives that help manage that potential dread, that paralysis, so you could actually focus on, living and surviving day to day.
Using abstract thought to literally manage the fear of death, that's quite something. Anything else major the sources pull in?
Just briefly, they touch on cultural evolution and meme theory. The idea here is that concepts, philosophical ideas, religious beliefs, political structures can spread through a population kind of like genes.
Memes, right. Idea viruses.
Sort of, yeah. And the very tendency to philosophize, to build these systems of explanation, might have co-evolved with culture itself. Groups with, let's say, more robust or useful philosophical frameworks might have had a cultural edge, helping their ideas spread.
Okay, so pulling all this together from the sources, What's the big picture? It sounds less like philosophy is this optional add-on and more like it's, I don't know, baked into our evolutionary success story.
That's really the core argument this material presents.
Mm.
Philosophy isn't one single thing that evolved. It's more like a complex result, a byproduct of several key adaptive traits all working together.
Our abstract thinking.
Right? That plus our social intelligence, our moral sense, that deep curiosity, and importantly, our unique way of dealing with knowing we're mortal. It really highlights that you philosophize because you evolved a mind that just does that. It wonders, it questions, it seeks meaning, almost as a strategy for survival.
It's just fascinating to think the biggest questions we ask aren't just floating out there, but are deeply tied to how we even got here as a species.
Really anchors our intellectual pursuits right into our biological and social past, doesn't it?
Mm.
Which, raises a pretty important question for today.
Yeah.
Given these incredibly deep evolutionary roots, this inherent drive to philosophize, how does it continue to shape us? How does it influence your behavior, your societies now, in a world that's so incredibly different from the one our ancestors lived in?